fracking? No. All they did is say, this person has an ulterior motive, they're gonna make money off the deal, okay? That's not a good enough reason to reject the argument. It is a good reason to be very suspicious of the argument. Does everybody understand that? But suspicion and dismissing the argument are two different things. Does everybody understand that? So when you hear someone accusing the person of ulterior motives, that doesn't mean that you can simply dismiss their argument, but it does mean that you should think about their argument carefully, because oftentimes people with ulterior motives try to get us to do things in their best interests. Does everybody understand that? Okay. All right. The last ad hominem is called ad hominem tu quoque. Okay, and tu quoque roughly means you too, as in OO, or you also. So what's happening here is a person is accusing the other of being a hypocrite and therefore dismissing their argument. Okay, so here's an example. Senator McSmutt has argued that I, Senator Cheats-a-Lot, am not fit for public office since I have admitted to an affair with my children's nanny. But I don't understand how McSmutt can say this. It has been well documented that McSmutt has used the services of prostitutes on numerous occasions. Okay, so the one guy is saying, this guy's morally unfit for office. Now, does he address whether or not he's morally unfit? No. He just points to the other guy and says, you too? And then what? Then they're both supposed to be okay? That does not follow at all. Does everybody understand that, right? So probably the classic example of the ad hominem tu quoque is this. Your parents preach and preach and preach, don't smoke cigarettes, and then they catch you smoking cigarettes, and you say, but you smoke too. That doesn't mean that they're wrong. When they're telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't smoke, they're still right. It doesn't matter if they're a hypocrite. Does everybody understand that? Just because someone's a hypocrite doesn't mean that they're wrong. So just calling them a hypocrite doesn't do anything. Okay. So that's ad hominem tu quoque. So there were 3 ad hominems. Okay. The next up is the fallacy of 2 wrongs make a right. Okay. This is when you justify doing something wrong by pointing to some previous wrong. And what do your parents always tell you? 2 wrongs don't make a right. Okay. For example, damn straight I shot Miss Randall with a pellet gun. She routinely and intentionally lets that beast of a cat out of her house to do its business in my vegetable garden. So what's this guy saying? Yeah, I shot her with a pellet gun, and it's okay. Why? Because she lets her cat poop in my garden. Well, just because she did something wrong doesn't mean that you get to do something wrong. Our parents have told us that since we could understand them, okay? So that's the fallacy of 2 wrongs, okay? All right, next fallacy, and we're gonna go through the homework after we get all the fallacies out, okay? Improper appeal to authority. This can happen in a number of ways, okay? The first way is you appeal to an authority, but you're appealing to an authority and the authority is testifying outside of his or her field of expertise. Does everybody understand that? If you're an expert in X, that means what you say about X is probably good. But just because you're an expert in X doesn't mean you know a damn thing about Y. And using an expert in X to talk about Y is not a good argument. Does everybody understand that? So for instance, Dr. M, who has a PhD in psychology, says the best way to catch bass during cold weather is to use a top floating crankbait with a very quick retrieve. Hence, we must load up on some top floating crankbaits before our fishing trip. Well, why is this no good? Because the expert's an expert about what? Psychology, and they're testifying about what? Fish. Not the same. Everybody understand that, okay? Another way in which an improper appeal to authority can occur is this. Oftentimes, the authorities in the field will all agree about something, right? But sometimes there's disagreement among the authorities, so there's no settled opinion. Does everybody understand that? So if there's dispute among the experts, and I'm talking about a general dispute, not 99 versus 1, okay? If there's no settled agreement among the experts, pointing to one expert to say so-and-so is correct is no good, because we could easily go find what? Another expert in the same field that says, no, it's not. Does everybody understand that? So appealing to an expert about a subject that there's no expert consensus on is an illegitimate appeal to authority, okay? So this happens quite a bit in economics, because economists disagree about most everything. So they might say, if you do so-and-so, that's gonna raise inflation. And then you can get another expert economist who will say, no, it won't, right? So appealing to either one of them is illegitimate, because you can find other experts in the same field saying just the opposite. So until there's settled opinion, there's appeal to an expert is no good. Okay, contrast that with this. Is there settled opinion among scientists about global warming, that the Earth is warming? Answer, yes. So in this case, to point to one expert on climatology who disagrees is illegitimate, because that expert is what? He's the odd man out. Does everybody understand that? Or to say, oh, we shouldn't believe in global warming because there's one expert who disagrees. Well, if the vast majority of experts do agree, then listening to the majority of experts is legitimate. Does everybody understand that? Okay.
So majority rules to make it legitimate?
If there's a vast majority, then those experts, yes, it's legitimate to follow them. Does that mean that they're necessarily right? No, but it is a good reason to follow them. Okay. Now there's one other way in which an appeal to authority can be illegitimate, and that is this. There are some matters that we think are just matters of taste, and so there can be, in some sense, no objective authority. Okay? Let me give you an example. Movies. People have different tastes in movies, right? For example, what's that car movie series? There's about
Cars.
What?
Cars.
No, not Cars.
Fast and Furious.
Fast and the Furious. What are they up to now? Number what?
9.
Probably like 11.
9, 10, 11?
10 is 10. No, 10.
Okay, so they have 10.
But I think there's going to be 11.
Okay. Fast and the Furious, not for me. But apparently it's for some people because there's 10 of them. Okay? And you know, if you read movie critics, right? And you read them regularly, you might say, well, if so-and-so says this is great, it sucks for me. Does everybody understand that? If they say it sucks, I'm going to think that it's what? Great. Okay? So appeal to an expert where it's just a matter of taste is not a strong argument. Does everybody understand that? Because it's just a matter of taste. Okay? All right. So those are 3 ways in which we can have an improper appeal to authority. Okay. Okay. Appeal to the people is next. This is on page 126. And this is simply everybody's doing it, so I should too. Okay? For example, mom and dad, you must absolutely buy me an iPhone. Nearly every kid at school has one except for me. What did your parents say when you argued in that fashion? If everybody jumped off a cliff, would you? And that's supposed to show you that your argument is fallacious. Does everybody understand that? Okay? And if you're just appealing to numbers, it is a fallacy. Does everybody understand that? Now, when everybody's doing something, there's usually a good reason, but without that reason, you don't have a reason. Does everybody understand that, right? So if I see everybody running from a building, I'm going to start running too, fallaciously, right? But I might ask, why are we running? And then they say, because there's a fire or there's some kind of alien monster, then I'll know, right? So numbers alone are not a good reason, okay? Okay. All right, appeal to tradition. This is when someone says you should do or believe something simply because that is what we have always done. Okay? If that's what we should do, you should be able to give me a reason other than we've always done it. Does everybody understand that? For example, I'm reading passage 123. In this country, marriage has always been between one man and one woman, and that's the way it ought to stay. In fact, there ought to be a law defining marriage as between one man and one woman. Okay, that's not a good argument because all they're saying is that's the way we've always done it. Okay, if there's a good reason why we should have always done it that way, give me that reason. Don't just tell me we've always done it that way. How do we know this is a bad argument? Because once upon a time, we always had slavery, right? We've always done it that way. We've always had slaves. Well, that's not a good reason. If there's a good reason, give it to me. If there isn't, shut up.